Hi, I'm Jonathan Otero, and welcome to Leading During Crisis. I work for Crown Castle Fiber in Orlando and Jacksonville, and I handle the fiber expansion efforts in those areas. This podcast and this series is going to be about how IT folks are leading during crisis. You know, everything has changed since the pandemic started, and a lot of organizations, there's been so much digital transformation and changes in business strategies that the CIOs and the IT professionals are no longer just the IT gals and guys. um, they play a more prominent role in the organization and a more strategic role. So I'm joined today by Jason Mobley. Jason Mobley is a veteran of managing higher ed instructional technology departments and distance learning programs, and as the executive director of IT at Florida A&M University, which is also known as FAMU for those of you who are not in Florida. Um, he currently manages a large online distance learning program at FAMU's College of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences and the Institute of Public Health. Jason is a technologist by trade and a professor of IT and IDT at the University of West Florida and Northwest Florida State College. He's passionate about synchronous video learning platforms, and if you guys follow him, you can tell that for sure, based on his post. And he's a resident expert in UCAS and collaborative learning technologies. His degrees include an EdS in instructional technology from the University of West Florida, an MS in information technology from Florida State University, and a BS in information technology and networking from the University of West Florida. And Jason is very proud to call Crestview, Florida, his home. So please welcome me in inviting Jason to the show. Jason, how are you doing, sir?
Jonathan, my friend, I'm doing well. Thank you for bringing me onto the show today. I'm happy to join and talk about technology.
Awesome, sir. And I appreciate you doing this. Thank you very much. So Jason, going along with the theme of what we're discussing in the podcast, I'm curious to know, since the start of COVID, what changes have you seen and experienced, and your team has experienced from the start of it to present day?
Well, at the beginning of COVID-19, being in higher education, obviously the transition from face-to-face teaching to remote instruction was first and foremost. We also had to tackle remote proctoring, testing through solutions like Respondus Monitor, or we even created a Zoom remote proctoring, which is a new use case to Zoom. And we also saw an influx of VPN access request and creation for the work at home employees. And then lastly, we've been working to kind of change the mindset of those who thought that they couldn't drive business, but only from a face-to-face environment. So that's kind of what we've been working on. And in a sense, we've been thriving through this environment.
Interesting. So tell me, Jason, what were, in your estimation, what were the top two most important priorities that you faced, once we shut down? Did you experience any challenges with the implementation of some of those strategies?
Absolutely. So I would say priority number one would be the hardware needs and helping faculty and staff who didn't have all the tools they needed to do the job as they were when they were in the office. And then I would say the second most priority would be helping to ensure that knowledge transfer and student outcomes remain the same, if not better, from a work-home environment. Ultimately, we had products like Zoom that literally saved the day. We signed a site license in January. And we were going to wait to roll out Zoom to the university until April. COVID hit, and that accelerated those plans. And we trained our faculty and our staff, our students came on board. And it's been a long ride, but I think we're over on the other side of the hill, and we're already talking about the fall semester now.
So that's interesting, Jason. So you talked about Zoom, right? And how you've implemented that and used that. So let's drill down on that for a little bit, because from an IT perspective, I remember in the beginning of this, there was a lot of talks about Zoom hacks and all these different things. You saw what happened with all the kids zooming into distance learning and stuff like that. So talk to me about data security. It seems that technology professionals, not just Zoom, but just overall, they're facing some significant challenges when it comes to that, the use of digital data storage and consumer, financial information and things like that. So what are some of the tips? Because I know that you're really big on Zoom and using that. So what are some of the tips for some of the IT folks that are watching that they can implement, that hopefully they can improve what they're already doing?
Sure. So first of all, you brought up Zoom. I brought up Zoom. Let's back up for a minute. So Zoom was hit with a data security issue. with things like Zoom bombing, right? So people went in, hacked into meeting IDs, and they actually showed lewd material to people. But let's consider that Zoom always had those controls, passwords, meeting security, waiting rooms, all those things existed prior to COVID-19, but they put the power in the user's hands because of these hackers and these troll type users. It forced Zoom to push these type of controls onto people. So I also felt from watching the industry and knowing all the players that there was a little FUD going on with the major players kind of attacking Zoom. But I think Zoom did a good job, and they've even tightened up their controls. But let's talk more about data security, right? So data confidentiality is important for users to store their private confidential data in the cloud. So simple encryption is faced with a key management problem and cannot gain complex requirements such as query, parallel modification, and fine-grained authorization. So you mentioned like things like HIPAA, right? So a lot of businesses have to follow the law, and you have to have a business associate agreement or BAA stating that you're HIPAA compliant, but not all cloud storage is up to the challenge. So really what you have to do when you are HIPAA compliant, or even the financial institutions, is you have to have a permission-based system that limits access by unauthorized users. You have to have access monitoring, audit trails, and then, of course, strong encryption during data upload, download, and storage. So here would be my advice. If your organization is going to consider hosting or holding PII or personally identifiable information or other health-related data, then you must understand the technical environment, personnel, physical, and technical controls that are required by the industry and the government standards. Now, that usually scares a lot of people out of that option. But another consideration to look at, and to other industry partners like UF, for example, they have a hospital environment already that has technical environments designed to meet HIPAA and other health standards. So they may be in a position to provide this service to other universities. Another consideration would be the state of the Department of Health. We would like to see if they could provide a hosted environment to meet this need. So I would recommend using one of the following cloud services that, number one, are HIPAA compliant, and even the financial side. So that would be Dropbox, Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, Box, and then, of course, AWS. In my opinion, by choosing a reputable cloud storage provider, checking the permissions of your third-party apps, and gathering patient data with HIPAA-compliant forms, and making good use of audit trails, ultimately, at the end of the day, you can ensure that your cloud storage doesn't conflict with HIPAA standards, and you have a stronger security stance for your employees.
Wow, I mean that's see, that's a perspective, and I'm so glad that you joined and participated in this, because there's a perspective there that a lot of folks are not even talking about. I don't think those conversations are even being had, maybe internally, but from an institution like yours, those are some things that you definitely have to focus on. So I really, really appreciate you sharing that, because I think that is the substance that this whole series is going to be about. So I appreciate that. That was awesome. So let me ask you this, kind of dovetailing off of that topic, because now that we're talking about Zoom and all these cloud storage providers, obviously the biggest thing right now is everyone's working from home, right? And who knows now, with the cases going up, who knows how long that's going to last? It's such a fluid thing. Nobody knows. But one of the things that I was really interested to see was, I'll actually share it with you. You can probably see it here on the screen here in a second. Let me know if you can see this. I saw a study on LinkedIn. Jason, are you able to see that?
I am.
And so I saw a study on LinkedIn News about a week or two ago that says this was about 16,657 people were polled. And 81% of the folks who work in IT, as you could see there, seem that they feel that they're better suited to work from home and work remotely. So I'm kind of curious to know there, Jason, what is your take on that? Do you see that potentially there could be an issue with working from home remotely? And do you feel that once we come out of the other end of this, is the IT team, would they be able to work efficiently being remote? What do you think?
So I absolutely agree that many businesses have learned that working from home can be effective. There's kind of been a paradigm shift, right, that has taken traditional modes of thought that believe that we were only effective in the office. With video conferencing technologies like Zoom, Cisco, Google, and Microsoft, users have been productive, if not more productive, from home. Most recently, I saw an article from the CEO of Twitter that said that his employees can stay working from home as long as they like. So software developers, QA testers, sales executives, they're literally thriving during COVID-19 with various work from home solutions. So yes, you miss the face-to-face interaction, but for many business segments, they're finding that you can be very effective at home. So of course, that doesn't mean that all businesses, especially service-related businesses, industries, but I do feel like the landscape will now be forever changed due to COVID-19, and I absolutely embrace working from home.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think that tends to be the case. And so let me tell you kind of what another premise of why we're even getting together and why I'm doing this series. As you know, I engage with IT professionals on a daily basis, right? Your peers, and we have these conversations. And what I noticed was, and the reason why I wanted to do this was I noticed that some usually businesses fall in three buckets from what I see on the sales side. They either fall into a bucket where they're kind of thriving, the dust has settled, and they've figured out what they want to do, and they're moving ahead, they're moving forward. That's one bucket. The second bucket is kind of like the pause bucket. Look, there's so much economic uncertainty. We were good where we were before. Let's just pause and on any new initiatives. And the third bucket, which in my opinion, Jason, is the worst bucket to be in, is the panic mode. Maybe there's a bunch of people, their friends, family has gotten laid off, furloughed, whatever the case may be. They have these wonderful ideas, but they're afraid to implement them because there's just so much change going on. And that's really who I'm talking to and who we're talking to in this series. That person who is panicking. So there's three things, three buckets, and normally what I'm seeing is they either want to reduce debt, right, eliminate technical debt. That's kind of like what their first thing is they want to do. They want to find any way that they can gain a competitive advantage while reducing the debt, and they're flirting with, I'll use the word flirting with the idea of adopting new technologies. And even though we're almost 4 months into it, there's still some people that are hesitant to adapt those new technologies, like microservices, AI, IoT, things like that, right? So talk to me about, in your opinion, what do you think how can we help that one person who's struggling right now in IT, whether they're the director of IT or even the CIO? How can we help that one person get over the hump? What do you think?
Well, ultimately, I get the fact that there's this sense of fear, right? And people are not always willing to try new technologies. They're scared of you actually putting the financial investment out. For example, a trend of technology that I've been investigating is SD-WAN. Because of all the VPN influx, to me, the traditional VPN hasn't worked as well as it should, right? So with SD-WAN, what that allows a lot of people to do is it takes the functionality of traditional VPNs and it creates like a micro segmentation to allow for end-to-end encryption, which is really a simplistic way to secure the resources. So using technologies like that is going to drive the business. What I think that a lot of IT leaders need to look at is start doing proof of concept, right? They need to work with businesses to be able to test different technologies in an environment where you don't have any financial spend. You can get 90 days, even 6 months to test before you're making a buying decision. Because by then you can determine, does this fit in our organization? Do I want to allay the financial cost? What is the ROI of this type of investment? So kind of you get to try before you buy, and a lot of businesses will do that. For example, with Zoom, I did a proof of concept with Zoom Rooms. Then I did a proof of concept with Zoom Phone. So we were able to kick the tires, test everything out. So again, a lot of businesses that are selling these type of products allow you to do that, but I don't think they're doing a good job of letting the CIO or the IT director even know that that exists. So I think they should ask for that and test these things out.
Interesting. Interesting. And I love that take. So let's say this, let me ask you this question. So what is, there's trends, right? There's trends and ebbs and flows in our industry. So in your opinion, what do you think is the biggest enterprise technology trend right now? So is it cybersecurity? Is it, is it a IoT? Is it AI? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I'm a big IoT guy. I love all the new AI technologies, but I honestly think the trend is cybersecurity right now, because there's this fear of protection of data, because again, everyone's spread out, everyone's at home. Now we're moving data from our traditional server environment, and with firewalls, the data was supposed to stay within the building, right? And now we're having to move that data around a little bit. So, data in motion. So I think a lot of IT directors are worried about cybersecurity. They're worried about the data security aspects. The term that I see every single day reading LinkedIn posts and various news media is the end-to-end encryption. So again, I think that we as IT leaders have to make sure that everyone's taken care of, because again, as soon as your data is compromised, then you're going to be in the media and you're going to have to do that. Why do we have to wait until there's an attack to have a negative impact on our business? Let's be proactive. So yes, I think cybersecurity is hot right now. I think that newer technologies like IoT and even to make sure that everything is safe, I think that's going to be your next wave in the coming months.
Cool. Awesome. And so, I think, if you would agree, I hope you agree with me when I say, based on what you just said, I think for the IT professional, let's say the CIO, or even in your role, right, as the executive director, I think that's going to present some interesting, not only challenges, but opportunities, right, for the organization, especially the organization that is forward thinking. So here's what I also I'm curious to know about from your level is, as we have these new opportunities, I think that we're going to recognize, as we evolve and change, I think finding and retaining the talent with these modern skills is going to be a big focus going forward. That's what I'm seeing. And, look, there's a talent pool out there now, right? So how do we retain in your organization? What steps can you guys do to retain and keep focus going forward and having these creative minds and modern thinkings within your organization stay on board? What do you think?
Well, I think it's two things. You have the retention of talent, and then the bringing the new talent in that helps the environment. So I think IT leaders should look at their people. Number one is a lot of organizations don't reinvest, right? So trainings like certification level trainings that need to be done, they need to find solutions. I did a lot of training in my career through a company like Global Knowledge, right? And they have a huge platform of different types of trainings. So make sure that you reinvest in your employees. Make sure that they are given the opportunity to gain industry standard certifications, because if they're not, number one, you're going to put the onus on them to try to find all the information themselves. So by investing in your employee, I think that it's going to retain them and it's going to make them happy. And ultimately, it's going to drive your organization. The second thing is, when you hire to find and foster new talent, you need to find people with outside the box thinking, right? We need to see people that are really strong on the emerging technologies, that stay up with the industry trends, and those who are willing to test the new IT technologies in a way that drives innovation, that saves costs, and ultimately provides a positive impact on the business.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that is going to be critical to the IT departments from all these organizations, retaining that talent. And I love that you said that. I think that's going to be something that's going to be front of mind going forward here, not only during COVID, post-COVID as well, right? Because things have changed so much. So, well, look, Jason, as we wind down here, I left the $1 million question to the very end here, and I want to ask you this. So, we spoke about all these different things. We spoke about trends, cybersecurity. We spoke about working from home, all these things we spoke about. How do we, again, I'm talking to one person here when it comes to whoever's going to be viewing this. There's one person that I want to reach out to. That person who is asking the question, how do we foster innovation while keeping the lights on? Remember I told you those three buckets that companies I see fall in. And the one that I'm worried about is the one that's panicking. Give me something, give me some advice that I can share with that person who's watching to say, how do we foster all this innovation to give that company the competitive edge, but at the same time, we have to keep the lights on?
Well, I think the first thing that I would do, and I think that should be a primary role of any CIO or IT leader, make sure that you go through and look at your IT spending and make sure that you're not wasting any money on any aspect of that. Because let's face it, IT technology is expensive, right? And it's a big portion of the finances. So I would go through and try to find every way to save money, to standardize, because what that's going to do is it's going to open your expenses to then spend in other categories, right? Then the other piece, and I'll come back to something I said earlier, the proof of concept. I'm a big believer in that. I think that IT leaders need the ability to ensure their vital budgetary dollars are not wasted on new technology that don't ultimately drive the business. And then lastly, I would say that we have to have the ability to drive innovation, but at the same time, we should be cost conscious and very nimble to change.
It's going to be something that I like I said, my whole thing is helping the IT community out. A lot of these people that are going through what they're going through right now, they're friends of mine. They're friends of yours. And we've seen it, right? We're not just business partners. We know each other's families. And so I think that is beneficial. Based on what you just said there, I hope that helps somebody out. And I think today, people who are watching this, we've definitely added value to them. So thank you, Jason. I really appreciate it. Thank you for participating in this for me. And thank you for sharing what you guys are doing in your organization and how we can all grow and move forward. So I appreciate you joining me.
Yeah, I appreciate you too, my friend. I think it's important to have podcasts like yours because in times like this, we need to learn from others. We need to see what everyone is doing. And I'm a big believer in not reinventing the wheel. So be it by talking to different IT leaders and learning how they're driving the business in this pandemic is important. So again, thank you for your time. I was glad to be a guest today on your show.
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much. And listen, stay safe. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you're going to be posting about next.
Yes, sir. Have a blessed day.
Take care, sir. All right. You as well. Bye-bye.